thought about watching up some of the Oscar nominated films that I haven't seen before recording this, but I think it's more genuine to do another sort of just like raw reaction after hearing the nominees and kind of talk about the films that I have seen and that I'm really happy to see nominated for various categories. And then maybe some that I have been wanting to see that are now at the top of the list after getting some more nominations. And you can make what you will of whether the Academy Awards count for anything in terms of quality of film, but I've kind of grown up traditionally watching the Academy Awards, watching the Oscars, and it's always kind of a big event for me whenever the nominations come out. So I still get giddy about it, just like the kid who used to love watching the award shows, and it still holds a special place in my heart. So hence why I'm doing this little breakdown. So I guess I'll just kind of get started. The top film that I want to talk about is a film that I have still not gotten to see, but I'm so happy to see it get nominated, which is CODA. I took ASL when I was in maybe sixth grade, and it was one of those things that I wish that I'd stuck with. And I feel like nowadays it's kind of becoming a popular thing to learn sign language, and there's a lot more emphasis on signing and making sure that various events are more accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing community. So over the years there have been stories that feature deaf characters, and with very few exceptions it's often been a hearing person playing a deaf person. There's still progress to be made there, but this year there was a film called CODA, which stands for Children of Deaf Adults, and this is taking place around a family where the mom, the dad, and the son are all deaf, but the daughter is hearing, and she's kind of had to be this translator for her family, and that's kind of like the role that she plays in the family. But she secretly wants to pursue her passion of music, which is something that her family can't fully understand on her level. And so it's just this beautiful setup for a story of conflict about family and your purpose in life, and how to honor both parts of yourself. And so I remember when I first heard that it existed, I was really excited, but I was particularly excited because Marlee Matlin was going to be in it, and I'm a huge fan of Marlee Matlin. Talking about representation, Marlee Matlin is one of the few that I mentioned before of deaf actors playing deaf characters, and she won an Oscar for her role in Children of a Lesser God, which is, oh, it's such a good movie. It's a little bit intense at times, but oh my gosh, she's amazing in that, and I highly recommend that film if people haven't seen it. So yeah, and then I watched her on West Wing and various other things, and kind of followed her career. And every time she's in something, I get excited to go watch it because she's just great. She's also just really funny. Yeah, okay, I'll stop. I'll stop gushing about Marlee Matlin, but I'm just very, very happy to see CODA get recognized for multiple awards, including Best Picture. That was just, uh, I'm over the moon about that, and it makes me want to see it even more than I already did. So it's at the top of my list. I do need to see it, and if anybody hasn't seen it, it is an Apple TV original, so you can go and watch it on Apple TV Plus right now. So stop this video and go watch it, because I can guarantee you it's good. And then, of course, West Side Story. I feel like we all knew that West Side Story was going to get multiple nominations, and I think that Ariana DeBose is probably the front runner for her category, but my biggest takeaway from watching West Side Story, I saw it twice because once was not enough, was how incredible she was in that, how perfectly cast she was to do, a musical, because she can dance, sing, and act, and that's everything in this one. And they really show off all of her skills in this. And the song "A Boy Like That," I Have a Love, that little mashup that happens in the show, is always one of my favorite parts of that story because of how all of that fits together, and just like the emotion of that scene, that's everything going into that. The way that they shot it, it was almost like all one take, so that you were just in all of the intensity and emotion that was going on between those characters, and this this immovable conflict of both of them having to deal with the fact that the person that they loved is either gone or a murderer, and how just the situation is just the worst possible situation. But at the same time, Anita can recognize that Maria is in love with Tony, and she recognizes that passion, and by the end of the song has kind of come to terms with it and is just like, I understand. I can't look at you, but I understand, and I don't know that I could ever forgive you, but go, because I know you have to go. And yeah, that scene is just incredible. So if you have not seen West Side Story, I think it's still playing in theaters, various places, but it's also coming to Disney Plus. Apparently, they announced that today. I think it's March 2nd, maybe. So yeah, definitely check out West Side Story. Steven Spielberg, it's his first musical, and he got nominated for director as well. I think that they said something about like he's been nominated for the past 5 decades or something like that, which is kind of insane, but very deserved. He's good at what he does, and I love that he was like, okay, for my first musical, I'm going to pick a huge Hollywood classic and remake it. And he absolutely did justice to the original. I mean, it really feels like a classic Hollywood musical. The more recent movie musicals have felt very modern, and this one really just feels like you're back in like the 50s and 60s experiencing this as though you're watching the original. Particularly the way it opens with just the very like kind of sweeping pan of like the city, and you just hear like some whistles, and you're just geared up for the rest of the movie. And the dancing is incredible, like the choreography is amazing, and just like ballet, it really just feels like this very theatrical piece. All of the acting is amazing. I mean, Ariana DeBose got nominated, but I could easily have seen Mike Feist being nominated for this. He was perfectly cast as Riff as well. And the two leads, Ansel and Rachel, they were both amazing. Rachel making her debut. I was so happy when they announced that Rita Moreno was going to be in it, because I'm a huge Rita Moreno fan. Anybody who has not seen the reboot of One Day at a Time that's on Netflix, please go check it out. It's wonderful, and she is just hilarious and amazing in it. She's kind of having a bit of a renaissance right now, and I'm all for it. But she's great in this movie. They kind of tailored a character to fit her and gave her a song. They let her sing Somewhere, which was incredible, and I'm going to get emotional just talking about it, so I'm going to stop talking about West Side Story. But yes, very happy for all of the West Side Story love, including Best Picture. Speaking of actresses being nominated, when I saw Spencer, I'm already biased because I love Kristen Stewart, and I felt that she's been kind of underappreciated over the past however many years. People kind of are just like, she's Twilight, she's Bella Swan, that's all she's got. But she's got so much more, and I love that we got to see part of that in Spencer. I think she was fantastic in this film, taking on a role like Princess Diana, such a beloved person, and trying to tell a part of her story that we haven't gotten to see on screen. That's a really intimidating task, and I think that she was up to it, and I know that she took it very seriously and really worked on like the accent and various other things. But yeah, I was just really impressed with her in that film, so I was very happy to see her get recognized by the Oscars this year. I was just like, please nominate Kristen Stewart for this movie, and she got nominated, and I was so happy. I don't necessarily think she's going to win. I think that one of the reviews I was watching was saying that like Nicole Kidman is the one to beat for Being the Ricardos, and I haven't seen Being the Ricardos, but it's Aaron Sorkin. It's about I Love Lucy. It's got an incredible cast, so obviously it's kind of a front runner in a lot of ways. I wouldn't necessarily have cast Nicole Kidman as Lucille Ball, but I'm sure she's great. Like I said, I haven't seen it, so I really can't speak to that movie. One of the reasons that I want to watch the film is because they cast J.K. Simmons as William Frawley. I remember the first time I heard that, I was just like, yes, that just makes sense. I had to think about it for a second, but then I just like wrapped my head around it, and I was like, yeah, I can absolutely see that. So, and he got nominated for his role, which is really great. I actually got to see most of the animated films. I got to see all of the Disney films that got nominated for animation. Encanto, Luca, and Raya and the Last Dragon, all of which are kind of cultural stories, which is kind of cool. And I loved Raya. Raya was the first one that came out, and I saw that one in theaters. And I really, really loved Raya. And just as sad as it might be, just the fact that they had like an all Asian cast playing Asian characters was exciting. And they picked some good ones. Oh my gosh. I was watching the movie and I hadn't looked up who all was in the cast. I knew that Kelly Marie Tran and Awkwafina were in it, obviously. But I didn't know that Sandra Oh and Gemma Chan were in it, and I love both of those people. And so as soon as Sandra Oh's character started talking, I could tell it was Sandra Oh. Gemma Chan was doing a bit of an accent, so I couldn't quite place her, but when the credits came up and it said Gemma Chan, I was just like, of course it was Gemma Chan. She's amazing. But yeah, highly recommend Raya and the Last Dragon. Encanto was just... it was a very emotional film because there's a lot of intensity and a lot of the storylines going on in that. A lot of people are talking about how like Louisa is kind of the best character in the story, and I highly agree with that. As an oldest sibling, that song Surface Pressure, which I feel like should have been nominated for an Oscar, but that's my own opinion. I really related to the sentiment of that song. But I love the concept of, you know, someone who doesn't have powers being the one to kind of bring the family together. And I also love Stephanie Beatriz. She's just awesome. And so I was excited to see her kind of take a lead role in something. And of course, it's Lin-Manuel Miranda doing the music and nominated for an Oscar, which is going to get him one closer to his EGOT if he gets it. And then Jermaine Franco made history as the first Latina woman to be nominated for Best Score, so that's really cool. Lots of ground being broken by that film, which is exciting. And then just saw Luca like a few days ago. I finally got around to watching it right before the Oscar nominations came out, so I could really appreciate that it was nominated. And that is a good film. I really kind of went into it blind. I knew that Jacob Tremblay was the voice of the main character, and I knew that it had sort of a Little Mermaid kind of feel to it. But I really liked the fact that it didn't end with the mermaid becoming a human and that was the happy ending. It was like the sea monster is accepted as he is and gets to go off to school and doesn't have to fully acclimate to the way the world is. And it was just a really nice message, kind of an unexpected, unpredictable way of ending the film. And yeah, it was just a really wholesome story. So yeah, highly recommend all three of Disney's animated features that are in the running this year. They're all on Disney Plus right now, so you can watch any of them on there if you have Disney Plus. The films I did not see from the animated category were Flea and The Mitchells vs. the Machines. And Flea was actually nominated for animated, documentary, and international film, which is really cool. I love when you get that cross category pollination of a film. Drive My Car, Parallel Mothers, and The Worst Person in the World. Those are all international films that had some nominations in other categories too, which was really cool. So I've got a few to watch up for sure, because I always like to try to watch the animated films because I'm a kid at heart, and also animated films are for everybody. One category I always love to hear about is the visual effects, because that tends to be where the more commercial films that aren't necessarily Oscar type films wind up. And so this year that was Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings and Spider-Man No Way Home, which some people are kind of upset that Spider-Man No Way Home didn't get a Best Picture nomination, and I do think that film is fantastic, but I don't see it being a Best Picture Oscar nomination. It's just not the type of film that does that, and you know, there's maybe some issues there because of that, but it was solid. Definitely check it out. Go into it having seen the other Spider-Mans, because there's a lot of references and callbacks, so you won't be able to fully appreciate it if you haven't done a little refresher on the Spider-Verse. My favorite nominee in the visual effects category was Free Guy. I did not expect to be able to say that Free Guy was an Oscar-nominated film. It's kind of similar to when Suicide Squad was nominated. Not nominated, it won for makeup and hairstyling a few years back. But yeah, and Free Guy was just so fun. Oh my gosh. After a couple years of just depressing things happening, Free Guy was just fun, and it was just a joyful movie. And I think that's why it stayed popular. It stayed in theaters for a while. We had it at my theater for a long time. Other visual effects, of course, DUNE. And DUNE got a lot of nominations, and I'm not surprised because it is quite a film. Denis Villeneuve knows how to make a movie, and yeah, that was a good film. If that kind of film would get nominated for acting, I could have seen Timothée Chalamet get nominated because he was incredible in that movie. He's good in everything he does, and he was actually in 3 films that could have been nominated this year. He was in The French Dispatch, Don't Look Up, and DUNE. Don't Look Up is nominated for a few things, including Best Picture, and it's on Netflix. It has a great cast. It's a comedy, but it's definitely kind of a dark comedy because there are some like emotional moments in it, but it's also because it's just like, it's almost too real how gullible people can be and how little they want to listen to the truth or listen to science. And it's kind of crazy to me that it was written years before this pandemic happened, and I think it's going to probably sweep some awards. So if you haven't seen Don't Look Up, I would definitely recommend watching it. And French Dispatch actually did not get nominated for anything, surprisingly, because Wes Anderson does tend to make it into the Oscar race with like, but at least like with like production design and score usually. I think his films have even won some of those categories before, maybe script. And it was a really clever film. It very much was different from his others because it was like vignettes rather than kind of a full story. But I enjoyed it, so it was kind of surprising that it didn't get any nominations. Other categories that tend to include some of the films that maybe wouldn't make it into the other Best Picture areas are costume and makeup and hairstyling. And this year, that includes Cyrano, the new Cyrano de Bergerac story that's starring Peter Dinklage, that I'm very excited to see. Partly because the movement director for Jagged Little Pill did the choreography that's in that film. So it's going to be just gorgeous. And I also like Peter Dinklage, and the story is, it's a well-known. If anybody's seen Roxanne, that's what Cyrano is. I was really happy to see Cruella get an Oscar nomination. Actually got nominated in a couple categories. I remember I think it was at the Globes, which we can talk about the Globes, but I think Emma Stone got nominated for comedy actress, and I wasn't expecting that. But I think she was great in Cruella, but that kind of film isn't the kind of thing that tends to get nominations at award shows, so I was happy to see it recognized. So to see it get Oscar nominations was very exciting. There were a lot of firsts this year, which is exciting. There were a lot of records being broken. I mentioned that Ariana DeBose and Kristen Stewart were nominated, and they are actually the first openly queer women to be nominated at the Oscars in an acting category in the same year, which is just really cool. As a queer woman, I love the representation that's there. Also, the fact that Ariana DeBose is nominated, she's nominated for a role that Rita Moreno won the Oscar for. So this is the second time that same role has gotten an Oscar nomination. And so if she wins, it would be 2 wins for the same character, which is really just impressive and kind of awesome. Jane Campion got nominated for The Power of the Dog, and this is her second Oscar nomination, and it's also the first time that a woman has been nominated for director twice. And we can go into how upsetting it is that this is the first time that has happened, and all of the sexism that exists in the award shows, but I like the fact that we can mark that occasion. Other people breaking barriers. I talked about CODA earlier, so I'm going to talk about CODA a little bit more. The actor who plays the father, Troy Kotsur, is deaf, and he got nominated for that film. And this is, I think, only the second time that a deaf actor has been nominated for an Oscar. The first time was Marlee Matlin, who won. So that was just so much representation happening. And the only way that representation can happen at an award show is if you've put them in the films to begin with, so that then they can get awarded for their work. It's a process, and we're things are starting to open up a little bit, and that's just really exciting, and should just be continued, and should be lauded every time it does, and should be remarked on. The last thing I want to talk about in the excitement positive category of things is the film Tick, Tick, Boom. I love this film. I think as a directorial debut, Lin-Manuel Miranda just did a great job. It really is a love letter to New York Broadway, and he absolutely honored the legacy of Jonathan Larson and Stephen Sondheim with that film. It's kind of bizarre to have Stephen Sondheim pass right in between the release of Tick, Tick, Boom and West Side Story, because these are both films that he was a part of in some way. And so they became tributes to him, which was really cool to have that at the time when everybody was kind of mourning the loss of Stephen Sondheim. So I would say I could talk about Tick, Tick, Boom for hours, but I already have, and I've actually got my own sort of react video that I recorded a couple months ago, like right after I saw it the first time, that I'm going to post. So you will get to see more of my thoughts on Tick, Tick, Boom, but I was just very, very happy to see Andrew Garfield get nominated for that, because it is the best performance I have seen him do, and he absolutely deserves it, and I hope he wins. It'd be really cool if he won. But also the editing got nominated, which I also agree with. Yeah, just really happy to see Tick, Tick, Boom get a couple nominations, particularly for Andrew. I was not happy that it didn't get nominated for Best Picture, because I feel like it should have been in that category. Now we can kind of move into things that were snubbed. I did not see House of Gucci, but I know a lot of people were expecting Lady Gaga to get nominated for that. Jennifer Hudson did not get nominated for Respect. Ruth Negga did not get nominated for Passing. I think people expected to see nominations for these two actresses. I didn't see Passing yet. It's on my list because it also has Tessa Thompson, and I'm just very intrigued by the concept. I did see Respect, which was a really hard watch because I didn't realize just how difficult Aretha Franklin's life was. It makes her ability to be the artist that she was that much more impressive. But Jennifer Hudson was incredible in that movie. It was very similar to watching United States versus Billie Holiday and seeing Andra Day play that character. They were very similar, kind of intense films, but also just incredible performances by both actresses. So yeah, I think it was surprising that Jennifer Hudson didn't get nominated. And I won't go into who in the category I think shouldn't be nominated so that Jennifer Hudson can, because I think that just kind of stirs up all kinds of stuff that I don't want to get into. But dark horse nominees that I thought might get nominated, kind of in the same vein as Kristen Stewart, were Rachel Zegler and Emilia Jones. Rachel's obviously making her debut in West Side Story, doing a fantastic job, I thought. And then Emilia Jones, also kind of a newcomer, was the lead in CODA. Again, a film I haven't seen, but I know it's great. Some of these people are also people who have been making some of the press circuits, so when you see these groups of people together, you're kind of expecting them all to get nominated. Yeah, so those were some kind of younger nominees that I thought might get nominated, but no. Oh well. I already talked about The French Dispatch and how it didn't get nominated for anything, but there were other films like The Harder They Fall, which is a Netflix film. It was like a Western, but with pretty much an all-black cast, which is so amazing and exciting, and they got the best people for it. It's like Jonathan Majors, Regina King, Idris Elba, Lakeith Stanfield. I mean, no nominations, really, in that cast, in that kind of film. Because of like how crazy time is and how crazy this year has been, I actually forgot that In the Heights was eligible to be nominated, and it didn't get any nominations, which was really kind of surprising because I think it was a great film, and the fact that West Side Story and Tick, Tick, Boom both got nominations, and West Side Story got a lot of nominations, means that the Oscars were open to movie musicals being recognized. But yeah, for some reason, In the Heights did not make the cut. yeah, it was kind of upsetting. But so that's kind of my rundown. Like I said, I haven't seen everything that's out right now. I haven't seen like Belfast or Power of the Dog. I haven't seen Being the Ricardos. I haven't seen CODA, even though I'm really excited about it being nominated for things. I've kind of got my list now of the things that I want to make sure I see before the award show comes around. I've got King Richard, Tragedy of Macbeth. I would like to see some of the foreign films if I can, like Flea, The Worst Person in the World, Drive My Car. I think those will be available places. I think there's going to be a way to see those. A lot of times when the Oscars are coming up, movies are re-released so that people can go watch them before the Oscars come around. I mean, that's pretty much the only way that most people see like the shorts, because they tend to do like a shorts series at theaters. So hopefully there's going to be a way to do that. With the pandemic, streaming services started to be eligible for Oscar nominations like this, and so this year a lot of the nominees are on streamers, and so you can watch them on things like Netflix, Apple, Amazon, Hulu. I saw Spencer is on Hulu right now. Everybody go watch Spencer. There's more access to it right now, which is exciting. It's different from seeing it in the theater, and I still feel like a lot of these, like West Side Story in particular, I feel like should be seen on the big screen. I know it's going to be on Disney Plus, and that might be how most people see it, but if you have the opportunity to see West Side Story on the big screen, I would encourage you to do it, because, yeah, I mean, I feel like most Spielberg movies should be seen on the big screen for the first time. So, anyway, that's sort of my take on the Oscar nominations for this year, for 2022. And the ceremony is going to be on March 27th, so make sure you tune in. Start making those prediction lists, you know? Just because I have things that I want to win doesn't mean that I think that they're going to win, so whenever I'm making my predictions, I always lean more toward, it would be great if this won, rather than logically it's probably going to be this, because I like to dream, and sometimes it happens. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about. So if you like this video and you want to hit that thumbs up, that'd be cool. And if you really like this video and you want to see more videos that I put on this channel, you can hit the little subscribe button and you will become one of my subscribers, and you'll get notifications of when I put new things up here. So yeah, there's going to be more content, obviously. This is new content. I look forward to sharing more of my thoughts with you on movies, on TV shows, on various aspects of media. I really enjoy talking about this kind of stuff. I have a real passion for it. So I'm glad that there's interest out there for my content. So yeah, thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more. So in the weeks since I recorded my initial reaction to the Oscar nominations, I have gotten a chance to see some of the films on my list, so I want to do a little update. I saw Being the Ricardos, and I think the performances were good. I was pleasantly surprised by Nicole Kidman, her take on Lucille Ball. She particularly seemed to get the voice. But for me, it was really more about the fact that you can tell that this is a movie about writing and story, directed by a writer, because that's like the focus of the story, which is around specifically how Lucille Ball was kind of instrumental in making I Love Lucy what it was, in terms of earning the laughs and really being authentic to the character and the story being told, and revolutionary in a lot of ways with some of the subject matter that they covered. And of course, J.K. Simmons was fantastic as William Frawley. So I also saw The Worst Person in the World, which was fantastic. And in the same way that a lot of things this year have resonated with me in terms of storylines that focus on protagonists who are kind of at that point in their young adulthood where they're trying to figure out what the next step is and find where they fit in. And the protagonist in this one, Julie, is definitely really hasn't figured it out just yet. She's very endearing, and it's interesting because the title is The Worst Person in the World, so I wasn't exactly sure, how that would be applied to the story, but I think it's such a refreshing take on, you kind of feel like you're messing up everybody else's life because you can't get your life together. And I thought she was a very human character to follow. Yeah, I really did like the film. I'm glad that I got to see it. I can understand the hype. The first film that I saw on my Oscars watch list actually was The Mitchells versus the Machines, which was so good. I think when I went into it, I didn't realize it was by the guys who did like the Lego movies. So like the humor was on point, all of the very like current references, lots of zeitgeist stuff in there. The animation was really cool. It was about a queer girl going off to college who just wants to make movies. So a lot of things resonated with me about that character. And it was interesting too because it wasn't overtly this queer inclusive storyline, but it also was not hiding that. There were a lot of little just sprinklings within the story, and there was like a line at like the end of the film, like in like sort of the credit scenes, where the mom is like, "So are you and Jade official yet?" Which just sort of confirmed the little sprinklings. And anybody, I won't say anybody, a lot of queer people who were questioning that when they were going through like middle school and high school will recognize things about the main character that seem to hint at the fact that she is maybe subconsciously becoming aware of that part of her identity. So I appreciated that. Like I feel like they probably had queer people actually in the writer's room when they were coming up with that story. And also the person who's voicing the main character, Abby Jacobson, is queer herself, so I'm sure she had some input in that as well. So yeah, I just appreciated that sort of unexpected queer representation in a like kids animated film. You don't get that very often, so I definitely wanted to mention that. So those are all the films that I have since watched. CODA is still on the list. I'm still very excited to watch CODA. Haven't gotten around to it yet. Still got several things left on the list, and I've got a few weeks to catch up on things. My local theater is showing the shorts, the live action and the animated, so I'm going to get to see those, which I'm very excited about. I was rewatching what I had recorded as I was polishing the rest of this video, and I realized that when I was talking about Encanto and Luca, I mentioned stuff about the plot and sort of the tone of the films. And with Raya, I only talked about some of the cast members, mainly because I was just so excited about Gemma Chan and Sandra Oh being in it. But I would like to also mention that the plot of Raya is really great, and I love that we get to see sort of like it's almost like a kind of an epic saga, because you meet Raya and the rest of the characters early on in the story, and then we flash forward to maybe 15 years later or something when she's like a young woman and she's kind of come into her own and she's on this quest to find the last dragon. And you really get invested in these characters very early on. And Raya in particular has such a great arc within the story. But I really liked how her character and Gemma Chan's character, how their relationship evolved over the course of the story, because they kind of are in a lot of ways typical frenemies, but there's definitely like a deeper connection there, and it's the kind of dynamic that you don't get to see explored in kids films as much. I feel like a lot of Disney movies you either have like a really antagonistic villain who completely loses by the end, or you have a villain who has some wounds, and once they get to heal those wounds, usually with the help of the protagonist, then you get to have them redeemed by the end. And this is definitely that kind of film. So yeah, I loved all of the girl power in this film. There were a lot of very strong female characters, and Awkwafina was also great. I loved both versions of her character. Both the dragon and the human versions of that character were very entertaining. So just want to say, Raya and the Last Dragon. It's not just about the fact that it's these great Asian actors voicing the characters. It's also a really quality film and a really good adventure. If you like an adventure, there's a lot of that in it. Anyway, since I had watched some, I wanted to give a little bit of an update and also just plug Raya a little bit more. yeah, so that's all.